Hey guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast, where we go out and get experts in the franchising community who can give you practical and actionable advice. And I've got with me a good friend of mine and a local guy. Actually, we should have done this in person. I didn't think about that. But Ben Fox, if you don't know Ben, I want to tell you just a little bit about him. And I'm going to read a little bit of this because this is really important. That he graduated from Livingston Elementary School in 1995, and as a proud Livingston leopard, he wanted to grow up to be a police officer. Now, obviously, I don't see any bars on his shoulders or anything, any stripes, but he's still not quite living that dream. But he did find some hope and love in the franchising community where he's been for a long time. Ben, he's the head of customer experience over at Five Star Franchising. You guys probably know Scott, Chad, Andrew, the crew. Like Ben's one of the ones that kind of makes a lot of things work on the back end with their brands. He's been running ProNexus for a long time. They're a leading call center group that helps support the home service community. We partner with them, we integrate with them. Good group of people. They can take your calls and get leads scheduled. That's really kind of their sweet spot. And there's a marketing aspect to what he does as well for a lot of their brands. So Ben, I wanted to welcome you to the show. Tell us just a little bit more about you and about Five Star, so people who might not know, if they've been under a rock, know who you guys are.
Yeah, Dave, well, thanks for having me. And yeah, we should have done this in person. Just being up the street, like, I don't know why we could have multi-angle, multi-camera, some great cuts. Could have been a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but happy to be here. This is awesome. So just for those that are new to Five Star Franchising, we're a platform company in the home services space. We have 6 brands, and we are going to continue to grow. And then we have two additional customer experience brands. So our 6 brands are Mosquito Shield, Five Star Bath Solutions, Gotcha Covered, 1-800 Packouts. We have Card My Yard, and then the final one is Bio One, which is a really unique brand in the crime scene, hoarding, cleanup space, and dead bodies, the whole gig. So really unique. But anyway, and then our 2 customer experience brands, we have ProNexus, which you talked about. I'm the president of that company, as well as Five Star Marketing Service, which I'm also the president of that organization. ProNexus, we support home service franchisors across the industry, as well as non-franchised businesses in the home services space. And like you said, we specialize in improving and helping that customer journey once the lead is created, making sure they have that first solid interaction with your brand through somebody either answering the phone, responding to a text or a chat really quickly, reaching out to them very quickly if they've expressed interest in having somebody call them. And we take them through that initial touch point, and ultimately, depending on your brand's needs, book an appointment, close a sale, or take a message. So it's contact center, sales center for the home services space. And then that last brand I mentioned is the marketing agency, and that just supports Five Star Franchising brands. We don't do anything for anybody outside of the space. So all you marketing agencies out there, we're not a competitor to you. We're just doing our own thing.
Yeah, I'd like to ask him, but I know he'll turn me down, so I can't even use his services, guys. So, yeah. So Ben, the topic today. So with all that in mind, you can see he's like plugged right into what's happening with lead generation. What's happening because they're doing it for their brands, right? And also what's happening once the lead is converted. There's an event that then creates a lead. What's happening after that? And I thought there's no better person that I know that could talk about what's changing. Like, how do we close that gap in the lead engagement process? Because the marketplace keeps shifting. But unfortunately, in this industry, we're very slow to react and slow to adopt best practices. So Ben, let's just start with you. Share, what do you see? Like, what's shifting in, like, even lead creation right now, lead generation? Because that's the very beginning of our conversation about lead engagement.
Yeah, I think it's no secret. Everybody is feeling this, that lead costs are going up, right? And it's more expensive, more difficult to get quality leads. And so that is putting an immense amount of pressure on the industry, right? Franchisees are struggling with that. Franchisors are struggling with coaching and leading through this change that's been going on for the last 18 months. So that being the backdrop to overall industry trends that I'm seeing, that puts immense pressure and kind of some frustration across the board. That means all the way down the rest of the funnel, there's a lot more focus and attention to every single step going on. We are seeing that consumers, they still want to be reached out to and spoken to or communicated with the way that they want to be communicated with. So whether it's just on the phone, that more traditional manner where you're picking up an incoming call, or outbound calling them and getting them on the phone, that's still, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but it's still the lion's share of the communications that we do that turn into an appointment or a sale. But there's also a lot of, and a growing group that want to just be able to text or want to be able to chat. And then in some cases, depending on the brand, our online booking tools, like you'll have 50% of your appointments come through online booking where they didn't talk to anybody, they didn't interact with anybody. And so the theme, if boiling down your question, is multiple ways to communicate or interact with your brand in the way that they want to, in the time that they want to, all getting them to, that final destination, which in our case and where we play with ProNexus is usually getting a technician or a salesperson in front of them in their home.
Yeah. I mean, we can just stop recording now. Just I hope you guys took notes. That's all we need to talk about. Make sure you've got omni-channel. No, there are a lot of things. Omni-channel.
There you go.
Used to be such a buzzword, I feel like, but it's funny. I'm getting just old enough where I'm like, it's almost weird that you don't want to talk to a human. You just want to book a service. Like, I don't know who you are. I think you do drains. Why don't you come over to my house? But that's a consistent figure, that 50%. We've got a partner in the industry that their platform is heavily used for scheduling home service franchise appointments. They quote almost the exact same figure. Like, it's about 50% of people that hit the website are booking or scheduling. Yeah.
So, I mean, I wish we weren't still just talking about omni-channel stuff, but it's like, it's so important. And you mentioned our industry kind of lags in how quickly they adapt and evolve. And the truth is, in some of the categories, so we have the 6 brands, and in those categories, there are some where not a single competitor has online booking, for example. Like the industry as a whole lags. And so it, as unsexy as omni-channel communication is, it's a huge differentiator if you do it right. It's also not easy to do. The integrations, systems talking to systems, and in the franchising space, franchisees getting on board with any changes that have to happen to implement something like that. It's a big lift, but it's really important. I would just call it's like table stakes today. The consumer is expecting it. The consumer, if they're coming to you for the first time, you've built up your brand, you've done a really good job of, differentiating yourself in the marketplace of why your brand is special, even in these commoditized brands like HVAC or plumbing, right? There's a bazillion plumbers out there. They've come to your website for a number of reasons, or they've come to your brand for a number of reasons, and they're selecting you because they think you're going to give them a good experience. The first interaction's got to be either answering the phone, scheduling the appointment, giving them an ability to communicate with you. And many brands are not giving, they're dropping off. They've done all that work and now they've dropped off because they're only available 9 to 5, or they're relying on voicemail overnight, or whatever the story is. So it's super important, but not everybody's doing it very well.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll share a fun metric with you, and I wish I had the actual numbers in front of me, but I know the gist of it. So we do not with our brands because it would be materially different, right? But with people that we aren't working with yet, we audit lead forms. Like, we audit their response rate, and it's like 74% don't even respond ever to a lead form, and I think it's maybe like 5% ever call back. Like that's just disgusting. Like those numbers, like and with lead volumes going or lead costs climbing, like think about the math, like the bottom line math here. Like your costs
Right.
are 30, 40, 50%. Your team's engagement with those leads, you're spending, let's say it's $100 a lead now, and 5 out of 20 actually get a phone call.
So
Unless they're ProNexus or a ClientTether, right? Like unless they're doing something, some tech, some investment to do, or they have
yeah.
Molly sitting at the front desk staring at the inbox and say, okay, I'm going to call. Like who does that? Nobody does that.
Yeah, I guess I'm in a unique seat because I do sit over marketing for Five Star Franchising's brands, but I'm also a supplier to the industry.
Right.
So in my so I have two things to share. I sit over and I look at the best performing franchisees that we have in our system, and they have a total commitment to really shoring up that experience right there at the call, whether they're using ProNexus or we don't have everybody go through the Five Star Marketing Agency or ProNexus at Five Star Franchising. It's not like one size fits all, but where it makes sense, we use our companies. But anyway, the best performing franchisees, they have really shored up that process, and whether they're doing it with people, an outside partner, or tech, they are really doing that well. Then there are so many franchisees that do not do that well, even within our own systems. And it is you can look at their numbers and tell who has tightened up that process and who has not, because it's reflective in their growth, their same store sales, and the headwinds and overall attitude, right? The frustrations they're having. That is usually one of the pain points. The second point is a case study that balloons. It's balloons.
I'm not sure what just happened there. How did you make those balloons fly?
You do this and you'll get thumbs up here in a second. I don't know. Anyway, you'll have to cut out this. I don't know if a video is
Oh, we're
posted.
leaving it. Yeah, we're leaving all of it. I don't cut anything.
It's all clean. Okay.
That's beautiful.
The second point was a case study similar to yours that I did with Thumbtack, and plug for Thumbtack. Great lead gen partner. We've worked with them for years, integrated with them at ProNexus like 5 years ago, and it's been a really good partnership. But through that partnership, and I won't name brands, but really, really solid brands in very competitive industries, we would get Thumbtack data, and if they were not using, and it's a plug for ProNexus as well, but we did this comparison of locations in this brand that were not using ProNexus versus those that were. The average follow-up for a Thumbtack lead out just in the brand outside of the ones using ProNexus was 25 hours of follow-up. Like so if you think about Thumbtack, it's an on-platform like chat texting. If you leave that person for 25 hours, you're not getting that business. They're not coming to you, man.
No.
And like that is I would consider a world-class brand that does a very good job of branding themselves in the marketplace. They even are starting to have national brand recognition, which is very challenging to do. And yet you got franchisees on the aggregate that are not responding to the lead source in even close to an acceptable manner of time. So how expensive leads are today, it's gotten even more pressure, and having a good solution for that problem is incredibly important.
Yeah.
It's going to only get more and more important.
Yeah. And because of a lot of things shifting in the industry, right? I mean, we chatted about this off camera before, but like the FCC 1-to-1 ruling, that's that regulation that's coming out. I mean, I'm hearing predictions between 30 and 50% reductions in total lead volumes being sold into the home service space and franchise development, which is not the focus of our conversation, but a lot of people depend upon aggregators to give them leads. They're paying thousands of bucks a month. Well, what happens when it goes from the aggregator having a million leads available per month to 500,000 leads per month, but they still have to cover the nut and their bottom line expenses of what the same as they used to when they had a million leads per month. Yeah.
Costs are going to go up considerably. I mean, that's a good point. And for the audience, if you're a franchisor, one of the roles that we have is to provide guidance and leadership in the space. That's why people have joined the franchises. So they have a partner in the business that can consult help them navigate the hard times as well as the good times.
Right.
This is going to be transition. It may not be hard and bad, depends on your brand and how reliant you are on these type of lead aggregators, but it's definitely going to be a transition period, which is uncertainty is very scary. It's one of the strongest emotions for a human is just the uncertainty. And so it's going to be an uncertain time. You'll want to, I would think, proactively put a game plan together, depending on your industry, depending on how reliant you are on these categories, and start communicating that, start prepping the system, and start gaming out how it's going to affect your brand and what you're going to do about it. Even if it shakes out after 6 months that, quality is better and total cost of acquisition is right in line with where it was or whatever, it's still going to be a transitionary period that can be really fearful and challenging for owners.
Oh yeah, I don't anticipate this is a Y2K thing, right? Like where everyone's like, oh crap, people made millions of dollars changing databases and stuff, and then they're like, oh, there was nothing. I don't anticipate that'll be like this. There's definitely a shakeup, as Ben's saying, and you do need to make sure you're being proactive, because January 1 is when that takes effect, right? And so, or January of next year, so that, we got months, not years to prepare for this. So make sure that there's no hype. The scary thing about it is I don't hear people talking about this, and it's already mid-July. So if it takes a while, the small rudder on a big ship, if you've got more than 10 units in your franchise system, it takes a lot of effort to make those changes. And so make sure that as you're moving into strategy season, if you're seasonal at all, like make sure this is part of what you execute on this fall, or else January will be tough. January, February, March, right? The months right up to the build for the peak season are going to be really rough because you won't have the volumes that you've had. So people need a right size structure and tech, and maybe even teams if they're running fat, because you're going to have to figure out how to generate more. You lean on resources like develop or in-house marketing, getting partners that know how to specialize in different platforms. Ben, we could do a whole episode probably about marketing diversity, but make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there to kind of read through and get yourself educated on the rule changes. It's just what are the aggregators going to do, I think, is a little bit of a unknown at this point.
Yeah, but there are good ones. You mentioned Thumbtack. There are a few that are already aligned. So like,
Totally.
I mean, not that this is a plug for Thumbtack specifically, but they're good partners of ours as well. Like they've already got their infrastructure set up to support this, and so I don't think they'll see any difference. I think they might even see a bit of a surge of interest. Yeah. So, but that means, again, if a lot of people run into that platform, fewer leads go around. Again, they'll still bring lead volumes down, but just be aware, plan for it. So let's shift. So we've talked a little bit about Meta, what's going on out there in the industry. You've talked about you've got to have omni-channel strategy, Ben. Now let's talk just a little bit about the moment the lead is created, right? The moment of truth. What are you seeing is a way to optimize an engagement, generally speaking, with a lead, so that it's a digital lead that comes through. It's not a call in. That's a different conversation, right? No pun intended. But what are you seeing works? How should people be adapting so they're converting more of the leads that come in?
It's a great question. So it does depend on the brand. It's still as simple as like speed to lead and getting in touch with them very, very quickly. Many right now there's a lot of lead aggregators in the space that are selling the lead to 6 different players. But when it's a one-to-one conversation, you're still needing to get in touch with them within 15 minutes. So the data we have is that, frankly, 1 to 15 minutes of response actually doesn't make a huge difference in your ability to convert that person. But after that, you start to see significant decline in your conversion rate. So speed to lead is incredibly important. Also, straight up texting them is really, really helpful. If you're running it through like your own office or your own phone, texting is awesome. So if you're a small shop or your franchisees are handling this portion on their own, calling them immediately, texting them immediately, that's really working really, really well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm seeing when a lead comes up. Nothing has changed in the last 10 years. You just got to get in touch with them really quickly. And then it is all about, being authoritative and having a good uh, experience in that conversation, being really able to address their concerns, answer their questions. But in most cases, you're just really trying to get them to allow you to come out and meet with them in the home,
Mhm.
or if it's a sale, then you got to go through the whole sales process.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more, man. We see the same trend. I always quote the study on the 5-minute rule, because that's best, right? If you can get in touch with them within the five, but it's partially because people lose interest or they move on, right? It's not
Yeah,
because they're not interested anymore. It's because your window to actually engage with them, and this whole discussion is about how do we improve lead engagement. Like, their window as a consumer is this big or this big, or mom's got to run the kids to the soccer practice and she's got screaming kids in the car, but 5 minutes ago, she was on your website filling out a form saying, I got to have somebody redo my master bathroom. It's driving me nuts, tiles chipping or whatever. Right? Like, it's not about lack of interest, but it's about two things now. One, when is the consumer's window of availability to have a conversation with you? And
yeah,
two, if you're getting leads from another source, usually if it's a big spend, 3 to 5 people. It's usually what people go out to get a bid. So you also have to consider that there are maybe 3 to 5 other people who might have been reached out to prior to you that this consumer is maybe talking to. So it's more important. The faster you talk, it's like it depends on the industry. It's between 50 and 70% of the prediction of who wins is who has the most meaningful conversation first. Uh,
so yeah, and within 5 months we'll stop talking about that portion of it, because they're not going to be able to sell the leads to everybody, which
right.
is going to change. Like, speed to lead will still be important. Like you mentioned, mom is super busy. She is running and gunning all day long. You and I were talking about this before we went live. We've had a busy summer. I have a stay-at-home mom, or a wife.
Yeah.
I had a stay-at-home mom too, fortunately.
Yeah.
But we have 4 kids, and she is driving all over the place. It's more of a full-time job than I have. And so if something is submitted, get in touch with them right now, because you will lose them if you don't. If they are shopping multiple quotes, multiple bids, yeah, they are going to go. You're going to get a better first impression if you're the first one that reached back out to them. That first impression is super critical. That data that you just shared will still have a incredibly important aspect of it, but where they're getting blown up by 5 different uh, companies looking to come in and quote them on their behalf, that's going to change unless they requested that, unless they want that. So it's going to shift the conversation to, how are we on the phone? How are we in that first communication? How experienced or authoritative are we? Almost similar to what Google has changed the algorithm, where Google Eat is the expertise, authority, and trust.
Yeah.
Your website, your content needs to demonstrate that. That's what Google is saying. It will be the same way with your first interaction with the consumer. And so, good training with your people,
Yeah.
good training with your partners, having good partners that do that well, good written, those emails, those texts are done in a way that they exude that, or demonstrate that.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to shift towards higher quality and less about just churning through crappy leads to find the gold. And
Mhm.
it'll be more about treating every single lead with quality, because I would expect quality of leads to go up and the cost of leads to go up.
I want to circle back to something. I agree with you, by the way, on this one, 100%. There are a lot of people that are trying to figure out how to scale down the expense while they're also scaling up their responsiveness to leads. That leads down a path of, well, maybe I should just get somebody on Fiverr who can answer the phone for me sometimes,
Sure.
rather than have an in-house person, or rather than get a trained partner. Can you talk about that for a minute? Because you said it, and I want to make sure people don't glaze over it, because the first point of contact that consumer has with you is how they lay the entire foundation of their opinion of your business. So if you got a snot-nosed 16-year-old answering the phone who's like texting their girlfriend while they're on there and they know just a bare minimum about your product or service, they're really not going to be successful, or they're going to leave a pretty poor impression. They can still book a few appointments, but your conversion rates will drop. So what would you share? I don't want to glaze over that point. I think that deserves a little bit of airtime. One, you guys do this. You guys do pretty robust training at ProNexus when you bring on a brand to make sure you can be that
Yeah.
expert. But how important is that? And how do you recommend brands and franchisors, this is for you, create that consistent brand experience that's high quality across phone calls, texts, and emails? Because you mentioned having templates, but I just feel like if they were driving or not paying attention at that moment, they should probably hear it again from you.
Yeah, it is really important, even more important in certain brands, certain industries. We got our start with 5-Star Painting. Scott and Chad started that like 18 years ago, somewhere in there. Painting is estimate. You can't sell it over the phone, right?
Mhm.
Somebody's got to come out and quote it out.
Right.
So it was all about just getting a calendar appointment on the phone. Not back in the day, maybe not as critical that you give a great, awesome, like authoritative experience on that initial call, because you're just collecting information and the sales reps will be out and he's going to help you. But in some industries, like that does not work at all. You have to be very consultative on the call. You need to have somebody that is able to, have high empathy or be able to talk through whatever the situation is. In some cases, that does make sense that you can provide it through an outside partner, right? And you got to pick a partner that has really solid processes for training, brings you in to the training process within ProNexus. Yeah, so we'll launch a brand, and size matters. So we want a minimal number of locations on this initial launch, because you're going to train 15, 20 people on how to answer the phone and how to text and chat with your customer. And they need to have a significant number of calls and actions so that they get up to speed really quickly. But that's important. We do a lot of training on that. And then ongoing, we of course want the franchisor to be a part of that training, because just like all our businesses, people change. You got to bring in new people leave. And so ongoing training is incredibly important. If you're partnering with a company, that process needs to be buttoned up. And I would do some vetting of that before you go with any outside partner. The challenge, though, internally is you have to do the same thing, and people leave, and also you pay them a lot more. You're paying them just to sit around. There's the value proposition of a call center versus in-house that you're constantly balancing. Scalability with a call center is, of course, much better. They can scale up with you and scale down with you much easier than you hiring 5 people for the season and then firing 3 people or 4 people or all 5 people in the off season and then having to retrain them next year. But I'm kind of rambling, but the most important aspect is that it is ongoing, that you're constantly talking it, you're constantly QAing it, whether it's your own people or it's your partner's people, and that there's a partnership in that process, because it's really important now. And I think it's just going to continue to get more important as we go into the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Ben, let's say somebody that was listening today said, man, that guy is so smart. I just want to hear more from him. I want to engage with Ben. I want to talk to the ProNexus team, or I want to, whatever. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'll give my email out. You can email me directly, or my LinkedIn. Actually, my LinkedIn may be better because I get a little, yeah. But Ben at 5starfranchising.com is my email. Happy to have a conversation about what you guys are looking for, what the need is. And then Ben J. Fox at, I don't know what my LinkedIn handle is, but LinkedIn, Ben Fox,
Yeah,
5-Star Franchising.
Yeah, they'll find you.
Yeah, you'll find me. But I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation if anybody who's listening wants to get a little bit more insight, even if it's not to sign up with ProNexus. I'm happy to talk. I'm always willing.
Yeah, guys, there's a reason I brought Ben on. He's wired a lot like I am, in that, like, transaction be danged. Like, I don't have to have money coming in to have a conversation, try to guide somebody. Ben's the exact same way, and he'll also take you out for ice cream if you're at a conference with him. So, FYI, I'll go sing karaoke. He'll take you to ice cream. Don't do the ice cream before the karaoke, or it won't go well. But sure appreciate you, Ben. Awesome guy, great human, but also tons of insights and knowledge, as you can probably see in this brief session today. So feel free to reach out to Ben. And thanks for your time, Ben. Sure appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Always a pleasure, man.
Thanks.